Welcome to Prospects to Pros. I'm Andy Staples. He's Dane Brugler, and it's almost here. It is almost time. We are barely a week away from the NFL draft. Dane has gone into overdrive. He wrote you a book already, The Beast. This week, it's a 7-round mock draft. And Dane, it took you until pick number 2 to introduce some real drama to the proceedings. I will read a dramatic reading from the works of Dane Brugler. As I grow more and more confident about the pick at number 1, I feel less sure about what the Texans will do at number 2. I'm told there isn't a unanimous belief among the Houston coaches that available quarterbacks will be worthy of the pick. Holy crap, Dane. This is what Lance Zierlein told us last week in our mock. Right. He's like, I'm going to be the Texans, and I'm not going to pick a quarterback. Is that real?
Let's give Lance a lot of credit because he was out in front of this a couple weeks ago, and you heard it here on Prospects to Pros. He's been talking about it. That's exactly what I was told. Is that the offensive coaching staff, which we know, it's a new regime there in Houston. They are not. If Bryce Young is the number 1 pick, which I think feels more and more like it's going to happen as we get closer to the draft, assuming Bryce Young goes 1 in Carolina. The offensive coaches, there's just not a universal belief, a collective belief among those coaches that there is a quarterback worthy of the number 2 pick. Now, at the end of the day, Nick Caserio, D'Amico Ryans could say, you know what, we're not 100% sold, but we need a quarterback, and we feel good enough about C.J. Stroud. Could that still happen? Absolutely, it's possible. But it's becoming more and more possible that we see them either trade out of number 2. The Colts, I just have a hard time believing the Colts and Texans would do a deal for a quarterback like that. 2 division rivals, like that's a little tough to swallow. But you know what? Maybe, you never know. I mean, last year or 2 years ago, the Eagles and the Cowboys, one of the biggest rivalries in the NFL, they did a deal where allowed the Cowboys to go up and get Micah Parsons. Last year we saw the Vikings and the Lions do a deal so the Lions could go up and get Jamison Williams. It's not like we've never seen it before, but this is in the top 5 of the draft, top 3 to go get a quarterback, and that's where it gets a little dicey. But if that does happen, man, it gets interesting quick, because if the Texans can't trade out at 2 and they're not going to take a quarterback, then they're probably going to take either Will Anderson or Tyree Wilson. I don't think we have a great feel for which one of those guys is going to be. And then what are the next quarterback dominoes? Does someone trade up to 3 for Stroud?
If I'm the Cardinals, I'm wheeling.
Oh, yeah.
If the Texans pick a position, other than quarterback, if I'm the Cardinals, I'm wheeling and dealing. I want whatever I can get for number 3. Yeah. Put me wherever you want me in the first round, and just give me stuff.
I'm telling the Colts, hey, listen, I've got the Raiders on one line, the Titans on the other. We're ready to make a deal. You get ready to move up 1 spot and give us a couple day 2 picks. The Colts are going to be in a really interesting position if it turns out that Stroud is maybe near the top of their board. It's a really interesting dynamic with these quarterbacks. And we've talked about, back to the fall, we've been talking about Anthony Richardson and Stroud and Will Levis and Bryce Young. So I feel like we've talked the quarterbacks to death, but now figuring out their exact fits, it's going to be a lot of fun to see how it plays out.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of drama, I think, in the coming weeks, because, again, the Aaron Rodgers thing isn't done. Yeah, the Aaron Rodgers thing isn't done yet. Lamar Jackson still remains an issue for the Ravens and whoever else. This is a very fluid situation. So I am fascinated by what happens here in the next few, I guess, 8 days going into the draft. But let's talk this 7-round mock, because you go as deep as humanly possible. Every single pick down to Mr. Irrelevant. Mm-hmm. You seem to think your Mr. Irrelevant has a chance to be somewhat relevant too, just like last year's.
Yeah, exactly. Gregarious Owens from Houston stays in Houston, becomes a Texan. Why not? He's one of those bigger safeties that can play a nickel hybrid role. But with an exercise like this, it's obviously it's all about the content, right? But at the same time, this is helpful for me because it really
Mhm.
it forces me to buckle down on, all right, these are the needs. This is what team, each specific team usually does in the first round, or if they have certain thresholds that they look for. Certain teams will not draft a receiver under 200 pounds, whatever it may be. It really makes you focus on those to make it all fit. And I didn't include any trades. It's hard enough to do, just 259 picks that make sense, or, I can at least explain every pick.
Yeah.
Every single pick I can at least explain. Paying attention to 30 visits, paying attention to what, there are a lot of times where, I'm talking with a scout, and, he's just leaving the Northwestern Pro Day, and, we're just talking about a player and be like, oh, yeah, by the way, 49ers took him out to dinner the night before, just heads up.
Mm.
And it's okay, file that away. And maybe that'll pop up here in a 7-round mock. And, there's so many connections you can make that you start to overthink it. And, it's all guesswork at this point. But this 7-round mock is more educated guesswork than just strictly guesswork.
Well, and I like that you can see the personality of teams where and where a guy might fit. Like you have Alex Forsythe, the center from Oregon, going to the Patriots. That feels like a great fit right there. He feels like a Patriot.
Well, and who's the New England's offensive line coach?
Adrian Clem, who just came from Oregon. Yeah.
And so he's got some inside information on a guy like Forsythe. So yeah, trying to find those connections where it's you can connect the dots, and like the 30 visits. Those are really interesting because obviously some guys go to the 30 visits and just start. I won't say the team, but one team, this is a couple years ago, 3-4 years ago, one team brought in Chauncey Gardner-Johnson for a 30 visit. And after he left, they crossed him off the draft board. Not interested. And so sometimes that's what the 30 visits are for, is guys that they like, but they're not sure of, and just not sure if it's going to mesh with the culture and exactly what you want to do. And sometimes guys end up not being a fit, and you can go ahead and cross them off the board based off the 30 visits. So just because a team and a player are getting together doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to end up targeting that type of player at some point in the draft.
Yeah, that's the part I think people forget, is a lot of times they're eliminating, or it's one of those that you've had situations where they're job interviews, and we see this in sports all the time with head coaches, but we've all seen it in our own lives too, where the interview is, we're trying to see if you don't fit, and we everything else works, but you may come in here and we completely cross you off the list. That is another reason why you would bring somebody in and get that extra information.
And it's important to remember too that draft boards for teams are 150 names. The bigger draft boards around the league are maybe 180 names. Then you got like a team like the Patriots that are 115, 120. It lowered numbers. So it really just obviously like my draft guide. If I don't like a player, which there are certainly players that I'm just not fans of, I can't just not include him. He's still going to be in the draft guide, still going to put a general grade on him. There are some players that I would not draft until, the second round, or in normal years. But in this draft, this specific draft, it's one thing to put a second round grade on a player, and it's another to when you start to stack them and say, oh, I wouldn't draft them till pick 35, 40. But, when you start to stack them, you realize there's not 35, 40 players in front of him. So he ends up being the pick number 23 or whatever. So every draft has its own identity, its own type of, you can't go in with those of us on the outside can't go in with a strict sense of, okay, this is what we want for our schemes, we want for our culture. It's very, very generalized, where teams, they're obviously focused a lot more specialized with what they want, what fits them specifically. And, that does make things a little interesting.
So you proposed a little exercise that I really like. We're going to pick the guys in the 7-round mock and the fits that we really like. A day 1, a day 2, and a day 3. And I've got a couple day 2 and day 3 guys just because it's a bigger pool. But Dane, I'm curious, what do you really like? Where you put somebody in there and you're like, wow, this is even better than I thought as a fit?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of those guys. Even on day two, you look at. I really like Jameer Gibbs to the Cardinals. You think about that offense, and James Conner's the bell cow, but you add a Jameer Gibbs into that mix, and what that could, if it's Kyler at quarterback, or until he's healthy, that offense is going to need something, anything,
Yeah.
and Jameer Gibbs can be maybe that spark plug that they could use. So I like that fit quite a bit. Luke Musgrave to the Packers. Maybe Packers could go tight end in the first round. They could go
Yeah.
Michael Mayer. They could go Dalton Kincaid. Or you wait till a second, you pick up a Luke Musgrave. Love that fit right there. Both the Lions picks. I mean, I loved what the Lions did in my mock, really from rounds 1 through 7. The Lions currently have 2 second-round picks. I am taking Darnell Washington, the tight end from Georgia,
Yeah.
and then Jack Campbell, the linebacker from Iowa.
Ooh.
I mean, you think about their identity, and
That Campbell and Rodrigo together.
that'd be fun,
What?
man. You think about grit, and would they value a stand-up off-ball linebacker in the second round? I don't, maybe not, but the value I think is tremendous at that point. Plus, with you think about the way they want to run the ball, you add a Darnell Washington who has that pass catching potential, but he's going to be a smash mouth blocker for you from day one, help the run game. So really like what the Lions did as well. So yeah, I think there are a couple fits in that second round that make a ton of sense.
So one in the first round that I really like is Brian Bresee from Clemson, the defensive tackle, to the Jaguars at number 24. The Jaguars, they got Travon Walker with the number 1 overall pick last year. Josh Allen's still there. They just need somebody else who's dynamic on that defensive line, and all of a sudden everything else gets easier on defense. And offensively, they're there. They're where they need to be. This is a team that got into the second round of the playoffs last year, that lost to the Chiefs and was actually in the game with the Chiefs. So you add that piece and they become a Super Bowl contender. Like that's really, they do need some help in a couple of other places, but think about how much closer they are than going into the draft a couple of years ago, and they picked up Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne in the first round.
Oh yeah, no doubt. And obviously they're accustomed to drafting Clemson players. Do it again here. I mean, Bresee, I think, is an interesting sample because what we saw from him as a freshman was off the charts. I mean, he lived up to being the 5-star, the number 1 recruit in the country. Then the last 2 years, injuries and personal tragedy going on in his life. I don't think we really have seen the real Brian Bresee for long stretches at all. So I think you're getting tremendous value, I think, at 24 to be able to get him, add him to your mix. He can play 3 technique. He could play a 4-eye. He could play head up over the tackle. You could be really creative with how you use him, and he can get you disruption. So I like the Jaguars have shown interest in him. So I think it's a fit that potentially makes sense.
Yeah, this is going to be a good one if that comes to pass, because it's something they really need, and they don't need that much.
Well, it was interesting doing this mock. I was surprised how many teams really need defensive tackle help. Like, there's just a lot of teams that need big men, and this draft it's not a great defensive tackle class, but it's solid. And that's why, Bresee, Mozzie Smith, these guys are going to go first round. Because, I mean, Mozzie Smith, you look at let's look at the final 5 picks of the first round: Buffalo, Cincinnati, the Saints, the Eagles, the Chiefs. All 5 of those could be possible landing spots for Mozzie Smith, a guy that is very unsexy, but you plug him in there. My comp for him was Brandon Mebane. You think about all the years in Seattle. We talked about the Legion of Boom and the secondary and the guys they had at linebacker. Meanwhile, Brandon Mebane up front, what he meant to that defensive line, which allowed everything else to click. That's what Mozzie Smith can be for a lot of these teams. Not a guy that's going to sell a ton of jerseys and hear his name called a ton on the telecast, but what he does up front and helps everybody else behind him. That's a big deal, and I think that's a lot of teams will have a first round value on that type of guy.
Well, and another guy in that mold that you have going late in the first round, Tomi Adebawore out of Northwestern. You have him going to the Bengals, and gap shooting 3 technique. I mean.
They need
This
that.
guy's quick, and well, he's fast and quick, which they're
Mhm.
two different things, and they're both important for a defensive tackle. And he just fits that. He fits what they want. So
Yes,
I,
yeah, and he's
I,
long.
yeah.
He's for a shorter guy, that guy that's not your typical size, he's a really long player. So and we saw that at the Senior Bowl with his ability to win those one-on-ones. Totally blew up the combine, had a good pro day. So yeah, I think he's played his way into that late first round mix. And a team like the Bengals that want to get better on the interior of that defensive line.
Yeah.
He checks a lot of those boxes.
Steve Avila going to the Seahawks. Avila is a guard from
Yes.
TCU. Very important piece of that team that played for the national title last year. Without him, they're not in the national title game. They're not doing what they're doing. He was the leader of that offensive line. He was just, I mean, solid, reliable, everything you want.
Yeah.
And he just doesn't play a glamour position or a position that is particularly valued in the draft. He is as good at guard as some of these guys are at their positions that are going to get drafted in the first round. It's just he's a guard.
And I think he fits perfectly what Seattle wants on the interior. They
Yeah.
like those wide-bodied guys. They give you a little bit of versatility. Avila actually has more career starts at center than he does at guard in college.
Yeah,
So
which is
he gives
great.
right, and he starts at 4 different positions. So gives you a little bit of that position flex. His countering footwork's a little messy, but he gets into position. He's strong. There's a lot, and he's really smart too. I mean, you can
Yeah.
tell by the way he plays, understands angles, understands where he needs to be, and he executes. So I mean, honestly, maybe the most unrealistic part of it is, does he last at 52?
Right.
There's a good chance he could go, 10, 15 picks earlier because of the value that he brings. And in that same vein, Cody Mock going a couple picks earlier, 41 of the Titans. Titans need to get better on the offensive line in a lot of different spots. Cody Mock, his ability to plug in at different spots, that could be a potential fit. I know I heard from Titans fans that were not fans of Dylan Radins, the former North Dakota State tackle, who hasn't been great
Not the
for
same
the
thing
Titans.
though.
Different players, and sometimes it's easy to be down on a player from the same school, same position when he doesn't pan out. But these are different players, and can't hold the sins of one guy against
Well,
another.
ask the Titans fans, because I realized that Isaiah Wilson from Georgia didn't work out for you. But would you take Andrew Thomas as one of your tackles? I think you would. He played at Georgia. Not
They
the same thing.
might draft
So
Broderick Jones at 11 this year.
exactly.
So,
Yep.
but we'll still hear it though. I'm sure
Oh yeah.
from the cynics
Well,
of just because the helmet.
I have a feature on Cody Mock that I'm working on for The
Nice.
Athletic, and I was actually this morning going through some old stuff on him when he committed to walk on at North Dakota State, and there are photos of him playing 9-man tight end at 6'5", 225, and he looks, because it's funny, we've all seen the meme of him where he looks scrawny and goofy, but a full body shot of him in high school, he looks like a really great athlete, which is what he is.
Yeah.
He played every sport. He was a tight end, a linebacker, and a kicker for his 9-man high school football team. Like he's a very good athlete who happened to get up over 300 pounds. And so that's what makes it interesting, because I thought at the Senior Bowl, it was very clear he was obviously most comfortable playing tackle because that's where he's played, but was very willing to play guard. He mentioned that he snapped every day at practice at North Dakota State, even though he never snapped with the team, but he would snap before or after practice every day, because his thing was, initially, if a couple guys go down, I want to be able to go in and play center for us. And then it got, as he got better and better, okay, maybe somebody in the NFL is going to want me to try to snap too. So he was doing that at the Senior Bowl too. And that's the kind of person you're looking for on your offensive line. Another guy who will do just about anything, because he was the emergency Wildcat quarterback for his team in his bowl game, Sam Laporta from Iowa. You've got him going to the Raiders. I think number 70 is the pick. I love this guy. You know how I feel, Dane, about guys who are kind of the only person who can do much of anything in their offense, and yet they still put up numbers. That was Laporta. There was everybody knew he was their only legitimate receiving threat this year, and he still put up numbers.
He did, and maybe not on the level of Noah Fant and TJ Hawkinson in
But this
terms of
is one of the worst college offenses you've ever seen. Let's
it
not
is.
forget that.
No doubt. And even the catches that he was forced to make, I mean, there were defenders draped all over him because they know, hey, let's make sure we stop number 84, and then everything else will if they beat us with the receivers, okay, so be it. We're not worried about that. Let's cover 84 and see what happens. His toughness, some guys have to learn to be pros. He's already a pro. He's ready. It's from day one. He's going to step in, be a program guy. The grit, the toughness, competitiveness, whatever cliche you want to come up with, he's already there. He has that in him. And he's a quality target. He's just maybe he's not elite in any one trait, size, athleticism, power. He's good enough across the board. And so the value of where he should be drafted will be a little bit different from team to team. He could end up going a second round. But if he ends up going early third round, which I think is, what I heard the most from teams, early third, the Raiders, man, that is a really good fit for him, and exactly what they need at this point in time. With no more Foster Moreau on that roster, no more Darren Waller. So they brought in Austin Hooper, I believe, but adding another guy like this who can really be the future of that position for whoever's a quarterback makes a lot of sense.
Another guy I just loved watching this guy play in college. I don't think it matters which team you put him with, because I think he's going to produce for somebody. Maybe not immediately as a starter, but he will be a special teams guy on every special team. He will have a role, and he will eventually be a starter. Jamie Robinson from Florida State, nickel guy, just kind of jack of all trades. You can play him. You can play him as a hybrid safety linebacker, even though he's too small. He'll do it, and he'll do exactly what you needed him to do, and he'll understand exactly what he's supposed to be doing in the defense and what everybody else is supposed to be doing around him. That's the thing. He's just one of those guys that everybody sort of looked to on that defense at Florida State. Hey, what are we doing here? What do we need to do? How do we do this? And when they needed somebody to kind of force action, Adam Fuller, the defensive coordinator, that's who he looked to.
Right. And this might be the third, fourth round version of Brian Branch. Like you look at Jamie Robinson, not very
another
big.
One of my favorite players, by the way.
Oh yeah, he has like a universal approval rating. I mean
he's the Scott Van Pelt of draft prospects.
There you go. I mean the 4.58 worries you, the 190 worries you, but the tape, you trust the tape. And it's the same with Robinson. He's 191. He was 191 pounds at the combine. He ran a 4.59 at the combine. So, it's not what you want, ideally, no matter what position you're playing him at. But, again, you watch the tape, and you just can't help but be encouraged by the quick reaction. That's what, above all, from especially from a nickel or a safety, I want a quick reaction player. So, he reads it, and it doesn't take very long to process. He is, click and close, go, get the football. That's what Jamie Robinson is. He does not waste time trying to think about what his next move is going to be. It's all instinct with him. And you see the quickness that he plays with. You see the awareness. The size might knock him into day three, like it happened in my mock. But he's a guy that if he ended up going in the third round, I don't think anybody would blink an eye.
So another guy, day three, you have the Seahawks cornering the market on K-State dudes that defenses focused on and still couldn't stop, taking Deuce Vaughn to Tyler Lockett, already on the team, but taking Deuce Vaughn, who I love. I realize the size is all wrong, but the other thing about Deuce Vaughn to consider is football IQ. His dad's a scout. Right. He grew up around the game. He is
longtime college assistant coach. So he grew up in a coaching atmosphere in those meeting rooms and things like that. So that's a great point.
So I love Deuce Vaughn's versatility. He can return kicks for you. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's just a fun player to watch. And I realize his measurables aren't what you're looking for, but it doesn't seem to matter when he gets the ball in his hands.
But for the Seahawks, Kenneth Walker's your starter. He's your bell cow. So you add a gadget type guy like this, a space player. That's what Deuce Vaughn is. He's a space player. Get him the ball in space where he can go create, and then just I really want to see that first Twitter picture we get of DK Metcalf and Deuce Vaughn next to each other in the huddle. Just the disparity between the two guys. I mean, hey, line them up, stack them.
It's going to look like a Pop Warner player wandered into an NFL game.
It will. It's like somebody brought their little brother to play. But stack them. Seriously, put Deuce off the line of scrimmage behind.
You can hide him behind DK.
Exactly.
You never see him.
Deuce Vaughn is so good at that. When you watch his, and this is where you watch the end zone. Whenever you scout running backs, you watch the end zone view of the tape, and he is so good at hiding behind the big blockers in front of him. He has such a great feel for it. I mean, he's always been shorter and smaller, so he's used to it.
His patience is incredible. That's the most fun thing to watch on that end zone view. Is you're right. He slips in behind a blocker, and he's willing to wait for that block to develop, even though a defender might be getting pretty close to him. He has a sense of when the hole opens and he can go.
No doubt, and that's part of his superpowers is that he's in a rush, but he doesn't hurry. He was very instinctive with, okay, I know the hole's about to open here. He anticipates it and he hits it with timing. So even though the lack of run power is it's really going to hurt him when he can't just blow through some of those smaller holes in the NFL. But that's why he's a space player. And I think in Seattle, with the way their running back depth chart is set up, he'd be a nice addition to drop in.
That's exactly right. Another guy who's kind of a borderline day 2, day 3 guy. And you've mentioned that you think teams like Aiden O'Connell, probably the best of the quarterbacks below the Hendon Hooker tier. The guy I love, and I think will become a beloved backup who gets into a game and just torches somebody, is Jake Haener. You got him going to the Browns at number 111.
Yeah, I mean he is Jake Haener. After the five guys, with Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Richardson, Levis, and then Hooker, Haener is my sixth guy, and he's the one that I would seriously consider, even in the third round, start because I want him in my quarterback room. And I think people need to understand where, if we're going to just list all the positions, from the most important to least important, I think most would put quarterback 2, or any backup position they put lower on the list. Quarterback 2 is higher than some of the starting positions. So I think when you look at what Jake Haener can be to the Browns, what I heard from Chiefs fans who did not appreciate me giving them Jaron Hall from BYU in the 4th round. But when you
back up for Mahomes.
But you need that, especially, guys get banged up, guys get hurt. You have to be able to trust the guy coming in that they don't have to be world beaters. They don't have to, a Brock Purdy is not exactly.
Chad Henne had to play in the playoffs, for goodness sakes.
Yeah, exactly. And so Chad Henne's retired. No offense to Shane Buechele, and I can't remember who else is right now the Chiefs backups, but Jaron Hall, I know the Chiefs like him. The BYU connection is nice between him and Andy Reid. I think the play style with Mahomes and Jaron Hall makes some sense. And he's the type of presence you want in your quarterback room. So I had the Haener going to the Browns, which Browns fans didn't like that at all either. But you know what? Deshaun Watson goes down. You need somebody. Jacoby Brissett's not in town anymore. And no offense to Josh Dobbs, Kellen Mond, Jake Haener's an upgrade. And I think he gives you legitimate depth at quarterback where you feel like you can still win the game if Deshaun Watson's not out there. Same thing with Aiden O'Connell going to the Raiders, and then Jaron Hall to the Chiefs there in the 4th round. So that 4th round is kind of the sweet spot for teams looking to upgrade their backup quarterback position. And there's other teams that I know are looking at it. The Cowboys. The Cowboys are going to draft a quarterback this year, and I don't think they do it in the 3rd, but as early as the 4th round. Don't be surprised. I know they like Aiden O'Connell quite a bit. It's just a matter of it really last to them in the 4th round, which I don't think he will.
Yeah, there's some good options out there, and because the first round prospects below Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, well, I don't even CJ Stroud you might throw into the boomer bust list. Bryce Young's the only one that doesn't feel boomer bust, but again, he's got the measurables anomaly that makes him unusual. So that's why that second tier of quarterbacks, there may be an NFL starter in that bunch.
Sure.
There really might. A consistent NFL starter. Like, it's going to the Dak Prescott draft. I said he might be the best quarterback in that class. He had a horrific pre-draft few months.
Yep.
It looked bad for him. And that's how the Cowboys wound up getting him when they did. So there are some guys here who they don't obviously flash first round talent, but you put them in the right system, you put them with the right coach, they might be starters. Dane, let's do some synergy with our fellow folks on the Athletic Football Show feed. Robert's been going position by position through the draft. They have not hit corners yet, so we will be hitting corners for them today. And the cornerback draft, it's interesting to me because there's two guys who I feel are kind of right up at the top, maybe three. But the two that we hear most often that as potential top 10 picks are Christian Gonzalez from Oregon and Devin Witherspoon from Illinois. And I'm curious, can you explain to the listeners what's different about these guys? Why would one fit better with one team and the other fit better with another?
Well, I think you're dealing with two players that are obviously very talented in their own ways. And with Gonzalez, he gives you more of the toolsy, if you want to bet on the traits. This is the guy I'm going with. 6'1.5", 200 pounds, ran in the 4.3s. He's got the bloodlines. His dad was a 6'7" or 6'9" former semi-pro basketball player. Both his sisters are very accomplished track athletes. It's no wonder the bloodlines and all that. But this guy, for a lot of teams, they start with size. Can you run? And, can you match up man to man? And that's what Christian Gonzalez does. He's tall, he's long, he can run. He accelerates well. I thought he did a much better job this year finding the football. And this goes back to watching him in Colorado, where, he was making these types of plays. And then he transfers to Oregon, does the same type of thing. So can he play zone? Yes. But I think this is a true man-to-man type of corner, especially for a team that values, the size, speed aspect of the position, which a lot of teams do. It's a stopwatch position. Devin Witherspoon, on the other hand, not quite as big. You worry about the 181, the weight, not ideal for that position. But he did run well, which was a nice, that there were some concerns. Would he be a 4.48, 4.51 type of guy? He ran a 4.43 at the pro day, which was awesome to see. The aggressive nature that he plays with is just, I don't know how you don't appreciate Witherspoon as a player. That tenacity that he plays with. He is not afraid to come up and hit you. He's very aggressive when the ball's in the air, and sometimes, to his detriment, he will get some penalties, get some flags. So he needs to do a better job of walking that fine line. But this guy, I think, has scheme versatility, maybe a little bit more so than Gonzalez, where it doesn't matter what you're running. I feel like he's going to be able to plug him in. The instincts are still going to be there. Still going to play with the same, determination and toughness. So, I think Devin Witherspoon's got a little more scheme versatility to him, where Christian Gonzalez is a little more of the toolsy, high end, high potential type of corner that a lot of teams go for. So
the other corner that seems to be a fairly consensus first round pick is Joey Porter Jr. out of Penn State. Dad, much bigger NFL defender for the Steelers. But what does Joey Porter Jr. bring that maybe is a little bit different from these other two that we're looking at in the first round?
He will park his nose right up against you in press and jam you and look to make things uncomfortable from the start. He has 34-inch arms. That's that Peter Skoronski is jealous of that type of arm length, because that's he will maul receivers off the line of scrimmage. And he can run pretty well. He ran a 4.46 40, which is, certainly good enough. But there's a reason he didn't do the 3-cone. There's a reason he didn't do the short shuttle at the combine or his pro day. That's not his strength as a player. It is the change of direction, the quick twitch, turn and run. That's not really what he does best. He wants to use his physicality, use the sideline to his advantage. He's going to escort you out of bounds. He's not afraid to use that physical part of the game.
He plays like Dad. He's just smaller. Sure. Yeah.
Right. And so, he's this disruptive nature to his game is it really sets the tone for how he plays. And he is very excited to get involved at the catch point. So the things to like, but he won't be a fit for every team. I think he's a guy that for certain teams that run a ton of and we have to point out that teams run a variation of man and zone. Some teams will run more man than zone and vice versa. But for the most part, teams run both man and zone. Joey Porter Jr. is a classic bump and run corner. That's what he is, and he can play off coverage. But you want him using that length, using that physicality up close with receivers as an outside player. You don't want him inside, you want him outside. So he just won't be for everybody, but you can understand certain fits there in the first round.
So another guy that he's been mentioned in the first round, but maybe not because of one measurable red flag that is very, I mean, we don't see somebody this light very often. Mississippi State's Emmanuel Forbes. He's 6 feet tall. He's 166 pounds. Now, he is a pick six machine.
Yeah.
In college. Like he's great at finding the ball, and when he catches it, he's gone.
Even, go back to high school. The last 6 seasons, he has had 30 interceptions. So the final 3 seasons in high school, and then the first 3 seasons at Mississippi State, you take all of those together, and it's 30 interceptions, 16 in high school, 14 in college. And of those 14, he housed 6 of them at Mississippi State, which a new record there. This is a guy that, when you say he's 166 pounds, that's like, ooh, that's a little bit of a worry. What is he, 5'9", 5'10"? No, he's almost 6'1". Yeah, he's 6 foot 3/4, which is just it's an outlier, complete outlier. We don't see guys that light, that skinny, that rail thin at the position. But you know what? He doesn't really play like it. He is not afraid to get physical. He won't run and hide in the run game. He will come up and try to hit you. He's a little bit of a freelancer, and that's why I was a little. Like my first time I watched this tape in the fall, I liked it, didn't love it because he tends to freelance a little bit, which it helps him get some of those picks. But the more you watch him, the more you realize he's doing it responsibly. Do you wish he was maybe a little bit more tight with some of the footwork and movements, and it maybe didn't take as many chances at times? Yes, but I think he does it responsibly enough that you live with the good and you're okay with the bad because you understand his thought process. You understand what he's trying to do on certain routes and the way that his eyes are. If he's playing off coverage, he's working through what the route is doing, what the quarterback is doing. And so it just really comes down to that size that you worry about. And that might knock him into the second round. But if he goes first round, it won't be a mystery why this guy gets his hands on the football and he could be really disruptive.
Well, if you've watched Devontae Smith play,
get an
idea. I mean, the different positions, obviously, but if you want to get an idea of his frame, Devontae Smith's a good comp. He's 6 feet tall. The Eagles list him at 170. Smith got up to 175 for the combine. And here's the thing about light guys at the combine. That's them getting as heavy as they can get. So Emmanuel Forbes got to 166. Yeah, most times. But Emmanuel Forbes got to 166 for the combine. It means he's walking around less than that.
Well, and he got up to 170 at his pro day, which is good to see, but he didn't run, so he was at a lower weight when he was running the 40, and then he added a few pounds for the pro day, but he didn't run the 40. But coming out of high school, he was 165 pounds. So, I mean, basically he didn't put on any weight in college. And so, you need to talk with the strength and conditioning staff there and make sure that, it's not a situation where he's, skipping workouts and things like that. It's just it's more of Kenny. And this is, I've been told by scouts, it's more just he has trouble keeping weight on. It's more so that than he's not trying to do it.
Yeah. And it's interesting. So Devontae Smith, when Alabama measured future prospects at their pro day a couple of years ago, he was 166 and 6 feet tall. So that's the frame. If you're comfortable with Devontae Smith at receiver, you're probably comfortable with Emmanuel Forbes at corner. And so but he's a very interesting prospect because of that, because we don't see that often. I do want to go a little bit deeper in the draft, maybe the two guys from South Carolina, maybe. But before we hit on them, one more guy who just really interests me because there's a number that just pops off the screen. Like if you're reading the Beast, and if you're not reading the Beast, what are you even doing? But you get to DJ Turner from Michigan.
Yeah.
And you're like 40-yard dash time, 4.26.
Yeah, that's pretty good. And maybe even more impressive is the 10-yard split. It was a 1.42, which is I mean, that's just talk about suddenness. Talk about that quick twitch first movement. 1.42 is unreal. Yeah. And you can see why he ran 140 and was like, all right, I'm done. I'm good.
Yeah.
Didn't run again.
I would never run a 40 again in my life.
No. And his name is Juan Drago. I mean, that's kind of cool. And he goes by DJ, like his dad. But this is a little undersized, 5'11", 180 pounds. Talking to scouts, they think he's going to go somewhere top 50. When you talk about a stopwatch position like corner, you have this type of speed. He's a really aggressive player with the way he will ball search and go after the football, go after the catch point. His reaction quickness, we talked about it with safeties, corners, obviously the ability to react real time with routes. It's a mental thing, but also a quickness thing. And he certainly has that speed and quickness. Not the biggest guy, but the toughness is there. So somewhere top 50, I think you can bet DJ Turner is going to come off the board.
So the South Carolina guys, Cam Smith was the one getting all the pub going into the season.
Uh-huh.
It feels like Darius Rush through the pre-draft process has helped himself probably more than his teammate did.
Yeah. And I think it started at the Senior Bowl, really, whereas like, okay, we need to pay more attention to Darius Rush. I mean, he was a big fish in a small pond in high school. He was starting on varsity as a freshman, playing really as a Wildcat quarterback. Led his team to their first ever state championship game as a sophomore. And so this guy was like, big man on campus. He goes to South Carolina. He was mostly an offensive player in high school, changes and moves to corner full time when he gets to South Carolina. Maybe they even tried him at wide receiver a little bit. So he's still learning things at wide receiver, at corner, but he's 6'2", 198 pounds. Speed, not a question. Ran a 4.36 at that size, which is outstanding. Had the fastest GPS data at the Senior Bowl this year. So he has the length, he has the speed, and I think he has a short area quickness as well. So, with Cam Smith, I understand why a lot of people like Cam Smith. And maybe this is a preference thing. I like Cam Smith. The penalties really bug me with him. He had double digit penalties this year. Really handsy, really hands on. Just doesn't have a great feel for timing when he's going to attack the catch point and not going through receivers. It's something that he needs to get better at. You don't want to lose that aggressiveness. But at the same time, you have to be just more responsible with how you're going to attack the catch point. And that's what really bothered me with Cam Smith. But he's a really athletic player, can play zone, can play inside, can play outside. Just needs to become a more disciplined player. And if he does that, he could be a long-time starter in this league. But when it comes to corner, it's one of those positions where you cannot afford to be undisciplined, because if you do, it could mean 6 for the other team. So you have to be buttoned up. You can't, those mistakes can end up being glaring mistakes that, forget getting chewed out in the meeting room the next week. You're gonna help your team lose football games if you make too many undisciplined mistakes. So with Cam Smith, I like him. Somewhere that late 2, early 3rd round range. I certainly like him there, but until he becomes more disciplined, I'm still going to be concerned with him.
It feels like there's quite a bit to be had on day 2 at corner, but the two guys we just talked about, Clark Phillips from Utah, Juju Brents from K-State, Corey Trice from Purdue, Caillou Blue Kelly from Stanford. Maybe he goes to day 3.
Tyreek Stevenson, Miami.
Yep. Yeah, it does feel like there's quite a bit. If you need a corner, you're probably going to be able to find what you need.
And yeah, do you want an outside guy with size? Do you want a nickel? I mean, Clark Phillips is a perfect example of not really impressive from a size speed standpoint. But you plug him in the nickel, and I think he's going to be an impact type of player. I mean, 5'9", 184 pounds, ran a 4.51 40-yard dash and did not rerun at his pro day. So 4.51, he was comfortable with that, which tells you all you need to know. And you see that at times. I mean, I had it in my notes that, did not have elite speed on tape, but really quick, really smart, really aggressive. The ball skills are outstanding. Had 6 picks this year, almost as many passes defended as he did games played. So he's a really he's physical, he's tough. 18 reps on the bench press tells you how much he works at it and off the field. But the confidence really shines with him as well. So Clark Phillips, I think, is one of those nickel defenders that teams are going to look at somewhere second, third round, and he's going to immediately compete for starting reps with what he can do as an inside player.
So, of the guys you've got projected for day 3, who do you think brings the most value? Who has that ceiling where you grab him, you might just luck into a starter for 5 or 6 years?
2 guys really stand out for me. Trey Tomlinson, who, if he were 2 inches bigger, taller,
he's so small.
we'd be talking about him as a top 60, top 75 guy. But he's 5'7" and a half, 178 pounds. And I just got done, dinging Cam Smith for all the penalties. That was an issue with him as well this year. And that's why, the 4th round is as high as I could go. But a physical nickel, exceptional speed. He's got explosiveness. He's just comes in a smaller package.
Not afraid of anybody.
No, and
he's fun to watch.
It helps that he's been training with his uncle. Maybe you've heard of him, LaDainian. He's been training with him since he was little. So this has been a goal of his. Like, football matters to this player, and if anybody's able to overcome that lack of size, I think it'll be Trey Tomlinson, who, by the way, no longer going by Travius Hodges Tomlinson. It's Trey Tomlinson. That's what he wants to be known as now.
Alliteration is better for marketing purposes.
There you go. I like it. Little shorter. You got the TT. That makes sense. The other corner I wanted to mention, Riley Moss from Iowa. Just a hair under 6'1", 195 pounds. Really the hurdles champion in high school, and you saw that with his 40-yard dash. The hurdles are really interesting.
RG3, baby.
Yeah, exactly. Because not only the speed, but you have to have some jumps in there as well. You have
explosiveness, balance,
right? The timing, everything. It's all part of that. And he did that at a high level in high school, and I think that has helped translate to the football field where I think he's best in zone. That's where I like him the most, because he does a really nice job reading through receivers and understanding what route concepts are, the route combinations and the concepts that they're trying to pull off. But he can play man. He can play off. He can do all these things. He's a really good player. And in my mock, I had him going to the Giants in the 4th round. Shout out to Seahorn with the Giants. So I had Moss going to the Giants there in my mock in the 4th round. So I mean, it's just we don't see it very often. And so some will tell you he needs to play safety. Let's let him play corner. Let's see what he can do.
It will be very interesting to see where he goes, because he's very fast, very explosive, and there's value to be had on day 3 among the corners, but Dane's going to be telling you about the value on days 1, 2, and 3. So, Dane, get rested up, because next week is going to be very, very busy for you.
I cannot wait. It's going to be fun. I mean, it's we're just over a week away, and we still have no idea what's going to happen in the top 10. And honestly, I am perfectly okay with that. I would rather it be unpredictable and fun the night of the draft, where we're all reacting in real time. So it's going to be. Now, do you think we see any trades before, say, an hour before the draft, or do you think it's all going to happen pretty close to when the picks are being made?
Will the Rodgers thing happen before the draft? Because obviously the Packers want the Jets' first rounder. We'll see if that happens or not, because you would have to do it before the draft, and the Jets aren't going to do it. And they feel like they've got the leverage. So you got that. Does something happen with Lamar Jackson? Does somebody who's quarterback needy go ahead and bite and say, you know what, I will give Lamar the amount of money he wants? And then that means they're trading to the Ravens. And then do the Ravens
Right.
draft a quarterback. So it's
Yeah. Couple
that's
dominoes.
tricky. Yeah. So I can't wait. It's going to be awesome. Again, if the thing we topped the show with, if the Texans don't go quarterback, that's like chum in the water.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then it's a frenzy after that.
The domino effect of, okay, what does that mean for Will Levis? What does that mean? And remember, the Texans have pick number 12.
Mm-hmm.
If they want to play around a little bit and maybe move up and go get Will Levis at pick number 6, pick number 7, they can do that. They can. And now, I don't think you should get cute. If you like Will Levis that much, take him with the second pick. Get your quarterback. Make sure you're doing it the right way. But
don't pull a Mike Mayock.
What?
I realize he's a quarterback, but the Cleveland Ferrell, way high.
Well, no, but
Alex Leatherwood.
Quarterbacks are a little different. If you're willing to draft Will Levis at trade up and get him at pick 7, then take him at 2. It's just a matter of, because obviously you want value, but let's make sure we get the quarterback part right. And so now I think in a perfect world, they're able to trade back a little bit, still get whoever it is they want, and get extra value for it. But yeah, watch this. It'll be a moot point, and they take CJ Stroud, which honestly, again, Nick Caserio is the one making the picks. If at the end of the day, they come to the conclusion that, yes, we could wait, we could be more patient, but we feel good enough about CJ Stroud, then, let's make sure everyone's on board, and let's just run up the pick, and we'll feel good about
it. It's going to be absolutely fascinating, entertaining.
Yes.
It'll be great. Cannot wait to see what happens, and we'll be right here for you here at the Athletic Football Show.